Hi, I'm Karen, and I'd like to share with you how I came to know the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I still recall standing at the top of the stairs as a child and wondering who I was and what my purpose on the earth was, and hungering for that knowledge. I had no real idea where to find it, but the question about my purpose was always there. I attended a Christian denomination at the time, and I posed to those who taught me questions that to them were unanswerable. I remember asking, how can God and Jesus be the same person? And I was told that was a mystery. I remember asking, who participated in the War of Heaven? I reasoned that there had to be someone besides Jesus there if there were a war in heaven, and was told that was a mystery. I had other questions that I posed, and again felt that the answers were not given. So while I was grateful for the fundamentals that I learned, I knew that the full truth was not contained within the walls of the church to which I'd been going. So I kind of drifted for a while, not really knowing about God, not really knowing what my purpose was. And at that point, I stopped attending the church, and I searched in the only ways I could search to know more. But eventually, as the years went on, I began to despair that I would ever really know the purpose for my life. And I had a hard time moving forward, because without that I had no real way of measuring who I was, how I was doing, what I should do. I was tired of even the routine things like fumbling for your house keys in the cold and studying theories in classes without having a rod to evaluate them. I just didn't seem to have that sense of ultimate purpose. And yet I felt that as I read and as I looked for truth, that my search was fed, that there was a divine source leading me on, although I didn't really know that God and truth had anything to do with each other. I remember taking notes even as I read things, just in a little notebook that I carried with me for about 10 years, thinking, oh, I'm just assembling this massive jigsaw puzzle, and one day I'll figure it all out. I have a few corner pieces and maybe a few center pieces, but one day this will all come together. So I kept looking, and I think the questions about the purpose of life would continue to spring up whenever I would give them the least chance, almost like a flower in the springtime. And I would visit those questions again and try and find out more, and eventually tuck them away for a season. And that continued to be the case until I think finally the will to live ran bare. I just didn't have that desire anymore after a certain point. I just began to despair about life, and that I would ever find the answers to these questions of my heart. So I remember sitting on the edge of my studio bed despondently one day, looking over my circumstances and thinking, why go on? Why go on without this key to the universe? And I was caught then by surprise, actually, by a gentle but profound stream of impressions that I now recognize that came from my Heavenly Father through the Spirit. And those impressions included these. It was in the form of a voice almost coming to my mind, and the thoughts that came to me were, 1, you have to have the courage to live on. 2, every moment of love and discovery in your life has not been wasted. And 3, you will find the purpose of life. And while I could not understand fully how those impressions came and appeared on the screen of my soul, so to speak, I accepted them confidently and totally. And so I spent a few months really contemplating my life and searching further, again, in the only ways I knew how to search for the answers to those questions, preparing myself for the knowledge that was promised me. And then I had a remarkable experience one evening. I remember I was out on a beautiful summer night. I was jogging in the neighborhood under the light of this exquisite full moon. And this is difficult to explain, and I'm not sure I have exactly the words to portray what happened, but somehow, as I reflected over my life, it sort of summed itself up in a way that it never had before, and I caught a swift panorama of my entire life in just a split second. And then, at that moment, I was infused with a complete, indelible witness that God lived. And I knew for myself, for the first time in my life, that He lived. I knew independent of any other person, and it was a knowledge that I can't deny. I remember I sat down on the curb and started to cry tears of joy. I was so excited, and I felt I belonged. I felt I was loved, and I felt a deeper sense of connection with everyone around me immediately. But my questions then were, well, what about Christ? What about the things I've been taught? What does He expect of me? What's my responsibility towards Him? What exactly is this relationship supposed to be like, and what do I do now?